Welcome to Whole Lotta Wolves, Season 2, Episode 31. We're your hosts. I'm Joshua Buckley.
I'm Paul LePage.
And Alex Patakis, our producer, back on the dials. How's it going, Alex?
It's going well. How are you guys?
Oh, not too bad. Yeah. Not too bad. Well, we're midway through an international break, so what better time for a special episode, Paul? And it's special in the fact that it's a Cross-Podination. You love these puns, Paul. With the OG podcast for Wolves fans, as we're joined by Rich and Stu from Wolves Fancast back in England. How you guys doing?
I'm just waiting to see if he went first, and since he's got a whole rank on me.
I was going to say, I always fear when we're doing a podcast, I don't know what's worse, if two people talk over the top of each other or no one talks at all. Yeah. So I was like, I'll let Stu talk because he usually talks first out of the two of us anyway. But we're good, apart from being no Wolves game this weekend, which I've sort of missed more than I think. It didn't help that Wolves we played on Friday night, I don't think.
Yeah, it seems longer. Yeah.
So it feels longer. I'm missing it a bit more than I usually do, to be honest. I think because England played friendly as well.
Yeah. Well, let's start from the beginning with you guys. Let's go all the way back. Tell us when and why you started the Fancast and what's some of the best memories you guys have.
Well, I was going to say it wasn't started by me or Stu. It was started by the podfather himself, David Evans, who won't like me calling that if he listens. But essentially, Dave started it around the time we were in the Premier League under McCarthy. And it essentially started as part of the university project, part of just wanting to talk about Wolves with his mates, essentially. And it carried on not particularly strongly through those last couple of years, the last year and a half, I think it was, under McCarthy in the Premiership, and then going into the Championship when it was just dire the entire year and really toxic around Wolverhampton. But then I think something that happened at Wolves when we were in League One is they managed to get a lot more community support, and it was a lot more fan-driven that season in terms of the connection between the club and the fans. And then the podcast kind of grew out of that, really, that we're only really ones doing it. We're having a laugh. We're finding the fun stuff about being in League One. And it sort of just snowballed from there. We got promoted and I just kept ticking along. I think I joined the year we got promoted under Jacket. I think, Stu, you joined Fancast that year as well. We've both done writing for the Fancast as well previously. And, yeah, it sort of just, I guess, snowballed from there, really, in terms of, what Wolves have been doing. I'd like to say we have replicated and mirrored their ascension to the highest ranks of podcasting. But, it's still nice to keep going. It's still something that, we still do enjoy doing week in, week out, win, lose or draw.
I think the biggest point is that when I joined, I had hair like Neves has now, and now I'm completely bald, and that's what we'll do to you. But yeah, I like Rich said, I joined as a writer I was writing away match blogs because I was there was a few of us who went home and away religiously, and I'd had a bit of stuff with the BBC in the past when I was at uni, so I said, okay, I'll write some blogs for you. So ended up just taking mental notes and then writing it down in the car on the couch on the way home. I'm just being self-conscious there that this is an American podcast and I have to talk slower than normal. So
Stu, it's
Josh,
fine. I'd already
shut me up just if it gets too much.
Stu, it's fine. I already talked about pre-recording when I said me and you are chalk and cheese. As you can tell, I very much don't have a Wolverhampton accent.
Yes.
Whereas you very much do.
I'll go to my international voice. But yeah, and then Dave just asked me on if I wanted to come on and just do a podcast the one night. And I went, well, okay, no problem. And I kind of just stuck around like a bad smell and never went away. And like you said, there was only us for years until really.
It was the year. It was under Foes. It was like the first year under Fosun / Nuno. And then I think at that point the Express and Star started one. They started it the first year under Fosun, sort of that around the January time, I think. And we were like, oh, okay, quite a big player in the region, the biggest regional paper doing a podcast. And it's like, oh, we're the only ones. And then quite a few since then have either kicked off a YouTube channel or started a podcast. And, you know, I'm very much of you that, like, look, I love talking about Wolves. We all do. So, you know, but frankly, the more the merrier if you enjoy talking about it and you want to stick a recording of yourself on there for other people to listen to. And, you know, it's it's crazy how many there are now, both in the UK and in Wolverhampton, and well, now across the world as well, which it blows my tiny mind a little bit.
But how many of them do you listen to apart from ours, though, Rich?
So what's coming up next, guys?
I knew it. I knew that was the answer.
See, whereas me, I've been a loyal follower from day one, as you all know.
We appreciate that, Stu. Richard will see the light.
Yeah, I will.
So what's some of you guys' favorite memories doing the podcast? I'll start with you, Stu.
I think we did an interview with Jack Price. I think that was a good one for me. I was. It's a kind of like my one-man crusade to educate everyone that Trincao is going to be amazing this season, and with Paul as well, for you. That Jack Price was very kind of chalk and cheese. He wasn't appreciated at all without certain sections of our fan base, mainly the older ones. And when the interviews had come up, and because we've been nominated for a football blogging awards, was it best fan podcast that year, Rich? Yeah. But I'd only been on for a few months, so I didn't go. I thought, it's not really fair. I didn't win this. So I turned all the stuff down for a while. And then when we got a chance to meet him and interview him, and we went to the training ground, and we were there for a good hour. And he was more than happy. He answered everything we asked and more that didn't get included. That was something special. And obviously now he's had a great career in the MLS, and is he still captain now? I think he is.
Yeah, he is, yeah.
Yeah, so I think that was standout for me, just for what it meant at the time, really. What about you?
Interestingly, mine was an interview with Jack Price, but it was the second one we did with him. So we were really fortunate, pretty much up until we got promoted to the Premier League. The club consistently gave us an interview a year, because we were the only ones out there doing what we were doing. And you know what? It didn't really harm anyone in League One, but we did. We did one with Bjorn Sigurdarsson initially. I think we did one with Jody Craddock the year before, but I remember particularly doing that one. And then we did Scott Goldborn, and we did one with Richard Stearman, which I didn't go to. But what I'd say is how amazingly normal that Wolves players in particular are. So we gave Richard Stearman a Fancast Player of the Year award. Side of a pitch before the game, they literally said he's coming out. You can stand on the side, give him a shirt, have a photo, and piss off. And the media guy goes, "This, come over here," and he sees us and he clocks us, and it's almost like he half recognises us from and he introduces and goes, "Hi, I'm Steers." I was like, "Yeah, I know who you are." So that was kind of weird. But Jack Price again, that same day, because he was playing as well, he sort of saw us and gave us, quick high five. No, and you're like, oh, he knows who we are. That's really cool. But for our 300th episode, we interviewed. It was the last time we got to interview someone, because it was the year we got promoted under Nuno, and it was just after we played Man City and lost. But we interviewed Jack Price, Harry Burgoyne, and Connor Cody, and it was on a Monday evening. I don't know how the club managed to get these 3 pro footballers to come in on a Monday night. They came to Molineux. We were sitting in a boardroom. It was me, Pricey, and Dave Evans. And we don't take ourselves too seriously. So we kind of, whenever we've done interviews, we'll kind of say, look, we're just going to keep it relaxed. It is very much like a jovial, fun thing we want to do. And we start giving Connor Cody this pitch. And Jack Price goes, "I've interviewed these guys before. It's cool. Don't worry. It'll be sound."
Nice.
And I remember thinking, yeah, we need this is cool. I think he described it as, do you remember Wolves did that question tankard game, the YouTube channel? He said it's a bit like that, guys. And we just went, oh great. And the interview was a laugh. It was amazing. Again, there are bits that we had to cut out because, despite them being professional footballers, they're not actually that media trained, it turns out. So they had like Paul Berry and Josh Powers, who are the media guys at the time, and like they're laughing, but like something that had to get cut. And I remember us all laughing and then just like looking up and just seeing Paul just go, no. Like afterwards, they all say their goodbyes and we're packing up the stuff. And we go, thank you so much for organising that, Paul. And he goes, yeah, do you know that bit with Harry Maguire? And he went, yeah, don't worry, we'll delete it in good. So yeah. I was going to say there is one other memory, and I've where Walter Zenger's assistant manager,
Andrea
Booty, who did nothing at Molineux apart from stand in a dark trench coat next to Walter Zenger. Didn't have a job. That was his job, was to look dark and menacing like he was in the mob. That's all his job was, wasn't it, Stu? And we joked about it. We found out he was a DJ in his spare time. It was great. We've got word from Paul Berry that I think we tweeted him. No, we found him on Instagram, which is why we knew he was a DJ. And in very broken English, he was asking Paul Berry, was like, so what's this Wolves Fancast? We were like, oh God. And Paul, bless him, was like, he said, I want to listen. I want to hear what they're saying. Oh God! Like, try to work out like, oh, hang on, was Stu been on last week or something? Oh, God, dear, mate. But actually, he turns out he couldn't understand a word of it anyway. So yeah, there's been a couple of fun little things like that along the way where, as I say, you never know who listens. Like apparently Jeff Shee's got Twitter. Don't know his Twitter account, but he's on here somewhere.
He's hungry like the wolf. That's who he is.
No, he can't be. Can't be. I will find that man, Stu.
Now, Stu, you mentioned Trincao, so I'm starting to see now the plot develop for Bromance with an Option to Buy, where it's like got to be a love triangle here, right, Alex? So who would play you in the movie Bromance with an Option to Buy?
I was so tempted to just Photoshop a picture of Jason Statham in the background when he went out.
Oh, that would be good. I'd like that. Maybe because then we could add some action to it, Paul.
Exactly.
I think we could add to this theme every week and a new character gets added.
I think so.
Or another player or something. So, yeah, good call, Stu.
I like it.
So how have you done it, guys, in the years of championship mediocrity? Or it sounded like you looked to have a bit of fun in the League One years, but obviously on the pitch was a lot of fun and doing different stadiums and everything. But going back to some of those bad years, relegations, even now, how do you pull yourself around and start to talk about the Wolves after a loss? Or
you know what? I'm going to take this one because it might be controversial. The worst season I had doing a podcast was the year we got promoted under Nuno.
It was hard.
It was hard. Because what was there to talk about when you win 2-0 every week? Like, it was like, there were times where it's like, I think we won like 4 games in a row or something silly. It's like, Wolves have won 2-0 again. Jota scored. Bumtini scored. Neves is brilliant. And it's like, that in a way becomes quite tricky to sustain a conversation. Whereas, genuinely now, last season was a bit funny, but I think that lockdowns didn't help in terms of talking about Wolves and being able to digest it all and like probably the atmosphere around the club. Whereas like this year's been quite cool, I think, because we're doing well, but there's still bits to improve. And like, you know, the Leeds game's a perfect example, and Stu did a great job on that show recently where we've gone 2-0 up. We've been great for 50 minutes or whatever it was, and then there's this, you know, catalyst of change in Jimenez, and then we had 30 minutes of just absolute dredgeness, and like how you break that down and how you know, what you choose to focus on, I think is really interesting, what narrative you can create. And, you know, we've always been quite good in a way. I'd like to think that even Stu, who's probably our most opinionated, outspoken, I'd say, actually, I think we're quite good at having fairly balanced views and being able to see the other side of the argument as well and not be so headstrong on it. And I think that's what's kind of guided us through a lot of it. That we've all got different opinions. Like me and Stu probably won't agree on quite a lot of stuff. Weirdly, a lot of our football opinions are the same, which is annoying. Now I'm thinking of examples. But, you know, we all kind of, I guess, respect each other enough that, you know what, if we don't agree, we want to hear what each other have got to say and respect that little bit of space and be able to give it some back in a correct form rather than just saying you're wrong. It's about, you know, saying, well, here's why I think my argument's right. And, you know, but no one's going to be right because it's not how it works, is it? But yeah, I think that's how we've managed to sort of cope, I think.
We started literally around Dave's kitchen table. So we were in person until all this nonsense happened.
Yeah.
So we had the kind of threat of we could actually hit each other across the table, which in some cases came very close.
The John Bab years.
Yeah, me and Bab, Darren. Yeah, but again, me and John follow each other on Twitter. I think that's how we've always, me especially, I've always followed people and talked to people who I know I don't agree with. So you get both sides of things. It's boring otherwise. So I think, yeah, other than the winning every week and being really bad, not even being so bad that we were losing, just being so mediocre because it was just bored. We were just bored, weren't we?
Do you remember that last season in the jacket where we had like 3-0 in a row? That, again, tough.
Well, I was going to say that was a memory as well. Do you guys watch the Great British Baking Show? Is that what it's called over there?
No, but I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah, the Mary Berry thing.
Yeah.
Someone stood up at Brentford because it was going really badly. And I don't think you've talked about the concept of a happy clapper, have you? I think that's one that hasn't been an issue in America, really. Someone who never sees anything bad happening whatsoever. And it was really boring. It was really, really terrible. And someone got up and screamed at this woman, "We don't all live in a Mary Berry world," and stormed off. And obviously, if you haven't seen that show, and that was years ago now, but to get for someone to be so wound up by this little old woman shouting encouragement at someone who was really had a really, really poor game on the field, I thought, yeah, this is what Wolves does to you. This is how Wolves gets under your skin. And that was the highlight of the entire week's conversation on that podcast that week.
Yeah, it was all we talked about.
Happy clappers aren't a thing out here, really, except there was one coach who they called the happy clapper who was with the Dallas Cowboys, Jason Garrett. He'd always...
Yes.
That was
he was a bit,
Yeah, literally he was a clapper.
I'm trying to put a finger on how you'd almost define it in a way, because it's just people who just don't turn against the current regime. And like, I think you get it in major sports in America as well, like the amount of turnover you get in some of the coaches and things like that. I mean, I follow the Indianapolis Colts in American football, which I appreciate. I'm now saying that against AFC South rival, so hopefully
we don't acknowledge the Texans right now. So it's fine.
Good. Actually, like, it's weird. So I get like little snapshots of it on social media, and it sort of does reflect a little bit of like in the UK, but nowhere near as extreme. Like we have proper happy clappers here.
So with all of that, you must, I suppose, putting it in the context that a good number of our listeners, they are newer fans, having seen this iteration of the Wolves in the top flight. Do you have to pinch yourself sometimes that you're talking about this team with the likes of Neves, FA Cup semi-final, going into the Europa League? Because I have to. So how's it been like on the judging the success and where we've come from and where we are now?
Well, I mean, I think you were probably still over here when the most exotic player we ever had was Steve Corica. And you go from that in the 90s and you think, oh, I was really mad when we didn't sign Alan Nielsen from Spurs permanently. So then, I mean, obviously, apart from Bully, who you've had on the show, it's still dreamland. I mean, that's why I listen to this show every week. And that's why as soon as I listened to the first few and I put it in the group chat, I said, lads, these Americans are choosing to watch Wolves and be Wolves fans. They're choosing it. And they don't know what they're doing yet because they know things will all go completely terribly wrong, as it always does. And it still hasn't. And it is the proper pinch yourself thing. I mean, if I was literally pinching myself, I'd have nothing left of me. I mean, even this, having a scarf with Colorado Wolves on it is mental.
Todd, yeah, nice.
Yeah, I think that's the globalization of Wolves. We've had a few like friends and of a fan cast over the years when we're, I guess, the first half of the 2010s, I guess, when we weren't great, who just picked up Wolves almost randomly, like Steve, who I was going to call American Steve, which doesn't really numb it down a bit, does it? But again, he literally just picked a team borderline at random, and it ended up being Wolves and fell in love with it. But like that's like since like 2016 or whatever, that's not how people have picked Wolves. They've picked them because they're good.
Yeah.
Well, I picked them because I like the uniforms and the logos and Adama.
That's a good enough reason. Like
I'm an American.
Well, yeah, but it's I talk about this a lot in terms of why you end up supporting a club or whatever. And like for me and Stu, it's because it's the nearest club to us. It is purely on geographical reasoning, but it doesn't necessarily have to be like that. For people who've picked teams based on, FIFA. That's because that's how they're introduced to it. Genuinely, I follow the Indianapolis Colts for two reasons. Because I wanted to follow an American football team because I was enjoying it and I thought I need to invest in it. The reason why I went for the Colts, Parks and Rec, because they featured in there. And then I came across Andrew Luck, who was the nicest man in American football.
Who's from Houston.
Yes, yeah. And he spent some time in England as well. So it's all merged together on this show. But but it's like I've got no connection to Indianapolis. I've never been there. Chances are I probably never will, to be honest. But it genuinely, I will stay up until 1 a.m. watching a Colts game. And how do I describe that? Because I've watched a very good TV show once. And again, it just replicates talking like you guys who have gone, yeah, like you picked him because they've got an interesting uniform and one logo. One thing about Wolves, and hey, Jeff, she knows it. Our branding is 100%. We are known by our nickname. People know Wolves are.
Yeah.
And in the same way, like our logo is the name of the club. In a way, that you say Wolves, our logo is the wolf. It's like Apple, as a branding consultant at Molyneux once told me. And actually, but from that's not why you support them now, is it?
No,
it's because you live and die.
It's because Paul's my best bud now, and he'd be disappointed.
Yeah, I was going to say, but now, like you live and die by. I was going to say you live and die by Saturday at 3 p.m. But
well, 9 a.m.
Yeah. Just work it out for. Yeah.
You are right though, Rich. I mean, it's like me saying about the uniforms thing. I mean, that's why 20 years ago. I mean, that and Joe Namath. That's why I picked the Jets, and I've suffered ever since.
Oh,
but
I'm sorry. Yeah.
I knew full well where I was getting into, and it was almost a case of because the Jets had obviously with Super Bowl III being a similar kind of time period when Wolves were good. I thought, there's a correlation there. That's enough for me. And then obviously one got better and one didn't, and it was not the one that I thought. So,
Paul, do you know where Joe Namath played college?
I don't know.
Alabama.
Ah, okay.
That's where I grew up, was in Alabama. So.
Oh wow! Right. Say like.
No, look at that.
Got some good quiz question answers going on already from this episode. So
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I say like I genuinely, I'm a firm believer. I don't think it matters when you support a football club. You see it a lot, particularly at Wolves. It's like, well, if you didn't go to X game, then you're not a real fan. And it does my head in.
That's the Chorley one, right? That's
yeah.
I learned that last year, that what the whole deal was with Chorley.
I mean, when was Chorley's due?
86, 87. It was
wanna
when
say?
Bully signed.
I was
So
born-
Yeah, 86.
Yeah, I was born in 92. Now, Stu gets upset with me when I mention that, but like I literally cannot have been. I was literally not around at that point. But and so for me, it doesn't matter whether you started supporting Wolves when you were 5 years old because they were a team, they were a team news to you, or you pick them up when you're 32, and because your passion for it might not come at a certain point. And I think in England, it's really hard to digest it, chiefly because it is the national pastime. It is the cultural phenomenon in this country that you don't get people like yourself, Josh, who have picked up football in their adult life. You are either in the 80% who like football as a child, or even 20% that don't. That 20% don't, after they go through school, go, oh, actually, I quite like this game now. Doesn't happen.
very, very rarely. I mean, one of my mates, Dean, did actually do that. But that was only through me and me going to away games. I mean, that was like, again, silly little story. When you talked about terrible places you've gone before, Paul, like Preston, before they redeveloped the ground, they put us in the grandstand, which was like, think of Fenway, but like more dilapidated. And it was terrible. It was a terrible old. I mean, it was probably 100 years old at the time. And we went at half time to get some food. He went to get some food, and I said, "I'll just get me a hot dog or whatever." So these terrible, like rubberized hot dog things. Then he came back and said, "They've got no bread." I mean, what do you mean they've got no bread? And they said we can have a sausage in a bag.
That means something else here in America, I think.
Yeah.
But the euphemism ain't lost to the sea, I can tell you.
And that's what this was his first away game experience, going to Preston, up in the northwest of England, getting a sausage in a bag from a bloke in the back of a shed. So, which again is much worse for you lot. But yeah, it does happen very, very rarely where you pick up another pastime or a hobby later on in life. It's either like F1 with me. I mean, I've watched F1 since I was about 8. I've never watched NASCAR. I've never watched IndyCar. I've never watched anything else. Watching it now, I might have watched Talladega Nights years ago and got drawn in from that. But again, I didn't. So it's going to be very hard for us here to adopt something else, which is a bit weird why the whole NFL explosion's happened, because it's only been in the last 20 years or so.
Yeah.
Well, not even that, probably the last 10 years.
I mean, my thing in terms of enjoying other sports, so me and Stu, we like pretty much all sports, and I will watch anything. I think my sort of focus on whether it's football, it's elite sport, and I think if you watch enough of it, you can appreciate that. Baseball gets a really bad rap over here.
Yeah.
For reasons I don't quite know. Probably for the same reason.
Probably because it's so long, I would guess, compared
but
to
we have a national game, Josh, that lasts 5 days.
That's true.
And go, oh well, it's complicated. I don't understand the rules, right? So I would learn them. Mm-hmm. And it comes from football being like a really simple game. Don't get me wrong, but just take a step. It happens every year for the Olympics, and everyone goes, "Oh, I'm not going to watch any of that for the rest of the other 4 years." But just appreciate that these are people literally at the pinnacle of human physical prowess, doing what they're doing. I don't watch a lot of F1, but I can at least appreciate. I will get round to watching Drive to Survive, because that's what's caused a big boom in America.
Yeah,
we were talking about it the other day, weren't we? I feel like I'm going off on a wild tangent because
is all really interesting.
I'm far more fascinated. I say the globalization. Anyway, the globalization of Wolves, and speaking of people who are Wolves fans, who aren't from Wolves, who don't worry, the pain will get to you at some point. Because we me and Paul were chatting before the show about him going to Houston basically on the slope of peak misery at Wolves from basically through back-to-back relegations. And a lot of people will say, oh, well, you're not a real Wolves fan until you've suffered that. But I always think it will come. It'll come at some point. Now, it might not be back-to-back relegations, but something will happen. And it just tests you. It will just test you where you go, you know what, I will get up at silly o'clock to go and watch this football game or whatever. But that's what's being a fan's all about, I think.
Yeah. It's funny, I talked to some of my college buddies, and I'm like, if I could go back in time and tell college Josh, yeah, you're going to be waking up at, 6 o'clock in the morning some days to watch a soccer game in England from a small town, I would be like, you are out of your damn mind. There is no way. But no, it's pretty funny. I don't even know if I've told you this story, Paul. Really, the big reason I started... Well, I rooted for Team USA, kind of like the Olympic thing. And so I started watching them through qualifying and stuff like that. But my daughter, who hates baseball, hates football, I took her to a Houston Dynamo game and she loved it. It was like the coolest thing ever. She had a great time. We went the next week. It started growing. We bought partial season tickets. And that's actually why I bought FIFA. So me and her could play. We learned the rules by stopping and rewinding. So here she was, a 9-year-old that could explain the offside rule to people. And that's when I discovered Wolves. So it's interesting how, like you said, you get to the fandom.
Genuinely, like the same thing happened with me, NFL, and Madden. Mm-hmm. And my cousin plays American football for Great Britain. And I was chatting to him about it because he got... Yeah, my cousin's actually a really good...
How has this never come up?
Yeah, we'll cover it offline. Yeah, and he played like a season out in Germany a couple of years ago for it. But anyway, yeah. And I was talking... Because he got on the bandwagon quite early. It must have been a decade plus ago. Because it was before he went to university, when he was about 18, 17 or whatever, and he got really into it. And I only got into American football about 3 or 4 years ago. And I remember mentioning it to him and saying, I'm enjoying it now. Like, I get it. I said, I get it. And I said, like, I still don't understand all the rules. But I said, but you know what? I've been playing Madden. And he went, genuinely, it was crap back then. But that's how I got it as well. Mm-hmm. Because I was, every time you get flagged for doing something, it's just a new learning thing. And I think, like, it's weird because obviously me and Stu have grown up with football. And in theory, it's a really simple game. Like, you get the ball from one end to the other, you can't use your hands. That's all it is, isn't it? 2 people can catch it, but just get the ball in back net. But then you have things like the offside rule. And you go, oh, that's weird as a concept to, like, conceptually understand. You say, but video games actually genuinely help with that. And I think that's been what's probably caused the massive rise in American football over here and soccer over there as well.
That's great, yeah, EA Sports. I think Americans have a hard time with the offside rule because all of our sports are tailored for offense, and here's a rule that's really tailored to help the defense, and so it's like we can't figure it out.
I think it does, yeah, and it doesn't help that the offside rule, it's not fit for purpose anymore. So if you've been watching football the last 5 years, it's not designed to like catch someone who's like half a yard offside. It was basically brought in, and again, it comes from playing like school football, like in the schoolyard. And Paul will know the phrase, Stu will know the phrase, but you never want to be a goal hanger. So that's someone who literally stands by the goal who could just tap it in.
That's called cherry picking out here. A cherry picking,
yeah. And that's what offside's meant to stop, isn't it? Mm-hmm. But it's when you compare it now, it's like, oh, here's an elbow offside, and it's just, I can't get my head around it.
Well, so let's start talking about the actual state of the club right now. We've been on break this week, but we aren't short of things to talk about, thanks to a couple interviews. One was from Jeff Shee, and the other, quite a lengthy one, in the local Express and Star newspaper with Director of Football Scott Sellers. Rich and Stu, how do you think both of those came across?
It depends If you're talking about how it came across to normal people or Wolves Twitter, which is
how did it come across to you? We'll go for.
I mean, I didn't really think there was anything new in there and that we didn't know anyway. Because I mean, the whole thing about the player recruitment thing was him just talking how we've had this system anyway. This is what Kevin Thelwell had with Nuno as well, and I think because it's come out now. I mean, look at the players that Nuno didn't want, so Danny Olmo and etc. And he pushed for Podence, who again was on their radar, and Hwang was on their radar, and Nuno said no to him. So this system's been there for a long time. I don't know why this has made such a big. I have no clue, other than people overreacting as usual. Why that's gone so mental.
Is it just the sentence that he said, like? Yeah, it was it was just a weird way of phrasing it, wasn't it? Where it's like, Bruno Lage wouldn't want, I wouldn't sign anyone who Bruno Lage wouldn't want.
Anyone with me,
and
yeah.
It's like, it's just a weird way of saying it. It's like, maybe a little bit open. But I get what you're saying, because it's done by committee. Like, every well-run football club will do transfers by committee, won't they? Because they'll want to fit they'll want a certain player for certain position who'll fit culturally within the club, who's probably got a good fitness record. So, you'll bring in those people, you'll bring in, money people as well. It's like not something that happens apart from like Man United. I mean, God knows who sorts out their transfers.
I think the problem is it's going from what we knew as good old football men, like proper football men kind of logic, where you had a manager who did everything, he signed everything, he paid everyone on time in the 80s and 90s, to like a more general manager kind of NFL approach where it's structured and you've got people doing different roles. People don't like it and they don't like change. And they've done this on the continent. I mean, let's get in their mind. They've done it on the continent for a long time. The fact that they've done it in South America and Europe is completely by the by. Just because we don't do it in England means it's wrong. But it's not. It's just how modern football works. And I think you're right, Richie. It was probably how it was worded, and it kind of came off a little bit arrogant because he said, it will never happen or whatever. If he didn't like anyone, he wouldn't sign him. But we saw with Nuno, his race had been run, for me, 18 months before he was sacked. In that case, you're going to end up with a lot of Nuno players who no one else wants. Like, look at the absolute state of Man United. Yeah. The absolute state of Everton. 5 managers worth of players there who don't work. Well. Spurs, yeah. You can list them off. Sunderland ended up in League One for exactly the same reason. Managers on managers, 6-month, 12-month, 18-month contracts with players who don't fit a certain system. You've got to have some kind of forward planning. And recruitment by committee is just the way to go. I mean, we've got an identity, and like Bruno Lage's there's an evolution rather than a revolution. We've seen that this season. So I did not understand why there was such a mad backlash. I mean, when you read it, Josh, what did you think about that? Because for me, it was fine.
Yeah, I think with a lot of people, because you mentioned NFL teams, I think they're just used to everybody having input, but then there's one guy that says, okay, it's ultimately my decision. So the fact that there's 2 guys that one of them can nix the other one. And I think there's still a lot of people that go back and they're mad about Ruben Diaz didn't get here, or like you mentioned, Danny. Danny Olmo is a great example as well as some of those where it's like, well, because somebody didn't speak up and say no, overrule Nuno, that we've missed out on some good players.
I think what makes me skeptical or question some of the expressions that go into it is that we've got this fan base, and it probably talks a little that we are doing so well that it's just trying to find every little something to pick apart to find out something that's bad. And we've gone from slating a player from 30,000 people in the stadium who may have kicked a football about a bit on a Sunday morning, Sunday afternoon, who 20 years on think they know what they're talking about and could do a better job. Now we're hyper-analysing these two executives. So could you imagine you doing your day-to-day job and then someone coming in and saying, yeah, I don't think you're doing that right. If that was me, I wouldn't be doing a committee for your job. And it's like, are we that magnified on the club now that everyone's in the spotlight and that they get judged so severely? Has there got to be some? What's the checks and balances to it that comes into it? But it always makes me smile that we have this really strong opinion of something that we know very little about.
You kind of pinpointed it there, because everyone psychoanalyzes everything. I mean, I will sometimes deliberately put things on Twitter to wind people up, and I know full well. They were talking about ticket prices the other day, and I thought, well, we all know what the ticket prices for next season is going to be. I mean, we can kind of bury our heads in the sands, but it'll be what the new ticket prices for new members was in last August, because that's what they've done for the last 3 years. And I put it on, and it's like £100 increase, which is obviously ridiculous, but it is what it is. I knew I'd get bites from it, and I knew it would kick off people arguing amongst themselves. But it's so easy to do that. I mean, I just did it for a laugh, because that's the way I am. But people take it way too far, and they take it way too seriously. And like the Jeff Shee thing, as soon as I saw that quote about, oh yeah, we want to be the top 5, one of the biggest brands in the world in 5 years. I thought, oh no.
And especially, then he quoted saying about esports as well.
Yeah.
It's that word brand, but then it goes to the traditionalism of, well, what was a brand 20, 30 years ago? It didn't exist.
Is that?
Now,
It's
it's a whole different stratosphere of global communications that hopefully they're getting on the ground level and going up with, and we've got that advantage over other teams. I'm not saying it's the be all and end all to global superstardom, but I'd rather be on this path than be scrambling around with a shitty looking kit and crap manufacturers and stuff like that. So
I was going to say, we thought it was a bad day when Cable Cat got replaced. That's probably before your time, Rich.
Yeah, that's before my time.
Yeah, there was what? Just think of Boilerman at Albion. But Telewest, the cable provider at the time.
Okay.
It was called Cable Cat, and there used to be a Wolves. This was pre dial-up internet days, like late 90s. And it used to be on the same channel on live TV, you know, the one that had like topless darts and stuff. There used to be a Wolves TV, used to be a half-hour segment on a Thursday night on that channel. That's all we had, like video media. And as a result, we had this fluffy mascot next to Wolfie called Cable Cat. And then when the show got cut, Cable Cat had to go as well. As a youngster, I was gutted.
I was going to say, in terms of the Jeff Shee brand, I was going to say experiment or the project we were kind of working on, like almost diversifying the Wolves brand portfolio. I sort of think it's like the reverse of what happened to clubs when they originally formed in the Industrial Revolution, which feels like no, but hear me out, Stu, because football clubs weren't forged from nothing. They were pillars of the community. They were part of things. So like, it's not just. I'm going to loop it back to the into the States just because it's an easier example. Green Bay Packers.
Mm-hmm.
That is a football club. So you would just say football club, isn't it? Who got their name literally because of the company they worked with, because they were the Green Bay Packing Company. A lot of companies in England, a lot of soccer clubs in England were formed through businesses. In the north, you had a lot came from cotton factories, steel works in Sheffield, like Sheffield Wednesday. Like, I don't quite know the origins off the top of my head, but it would 1000% be related to a business because of the name Wednesday. Wolves were formed by the church. Now, obviously, Wolves aren't a brand of the church, but when it first started, the connection would have been to what they formed from. They'd have been playing for that area, whereas now it's almost the opposite, that we're the hub, we're the provider as Wolverhampton Wanderers, with all of these different things coming off it. And like, God knows what in 20 years' time. Like Wolves records, for example, now, in my head, I can't compute what that means. I don't quite get how that's going to help Wolves go from being 8th to 5th or 4th. I don't understand how that's going to help at this point. But there's probably something there. Now, at the end of the day, like they're piggybacking off the back of Wolves brand, as we said. It's a really strong brand for a lot of different reasons. It does sometimes feel like, are they using us in terms of that? And that we've got this quite cool logo, and it's like, well, we can say Wolves Records, Wolves Media, Wolves Travel, whatever you want to, gloss it up. But yeah, I mean, that's the path that they're on. As Dan will say in the Fancast a lot, we are not some billionaire's plaything for him to throw oodles of money at. We are on a path towards being self-sufficient. We are part of a investments portfolio. My always counter-argument to that is, if we are part of an investment company, unfortunately that means you do sometimes need to invest in the club, which we haven't done over the last couple of transfer windows, which is why we have 2 centre midfielders to last us 8 games.
I was going to say that, though. When you said that was the one thing that came out of this, where he said for the first time that all this other nonsense is actually going to go back into us and not Fosun Sports, which is the holding company, which is what it seemed when that thing was set up, that's where the money's going to go, and then it'll trickle down between the rest. For the first time in that interview, he said all this is to benefit us properly. Yeah. So from that point of view, I mean, I couldn't care less where that logo, that brand, that logo ends up. I mean, I've said before about the New York Yankees hats. We had them things all over the place. We still do. I don't even know what that meant as a kid walking around. Everyone had that NY on the cap. Well, I never had one, thankfully. But if he wants that kind of recognition and he wants us to turn the Wolves records into Def Jam, then whatever. If it works, it works. It probably won't.
Jeff
Jam, yeah. There's your title. Well done.
It's like what's the worst that's going to come from it? Not really. It's nominal, grand scheme of things. It's not like he's selling the seats in the stadium to melt down the plastic to then sell on, is he? It's not. It just feels like he's not focusing on it.
I think they'd probably argue too about the investment. Well, we just wrote off this big loan that Fosun had given Wolves, so I'm sure they probably do that. But yeah, I think that's where kind of the disconnect is right now, is seeing these other investments and then seeing guys that the team's not willing to pay an extra £5 million, and we're losing them, good players, because of it. I think that's where Wolves Twitter is getting fired up.
Yeah. And I've been as vocal as anyone on the Fancast about it. When they said, we have to be self-sufficient, and I went, well, there's no problem with being self-sufficient. I mean, if we'd have spent 30 million in January and then got it back off the money that you're definitely going to get anyway, I mean, we've got a rolling £50 million loan with Mercure Bank in Australia. So that's not being self-sufficient in a way anyway. It's just the way things are. So you're right. There's got to be a bit of give and take, and there's almost no give whatsoever with them. They've done their job. They've got us where we. I mean, we dreamed about being a Stoke. That was our dream 10 years ago, and now we've got it. We want more, which is fine because they promised us more. So I think if he doesn't keep coming out saying this stuff, I don't think people have too much of a problem with it. But he can't hide behind, it's a mistranslation, because it's not, because he said it over and over again. If he was just quiet and said, this is the plan, he did say in there 20 years, which is fine. We'll thankfully still be around. But, well, depends on the beer consumption in the meantime. But that's all fine. But the headline's going to be 5 years. We want biggest brand in 5 years. So it's that kind of constant conflict, which doesn't help, really. And that's it seems only from Jeff Shee and no one else. Everyone else seems to be towing the line now. Yeah,
and I think it's so difficult because we have made like a meteoric rise, and to be consistent at this level where like we want like, say we finish 7th, that's 3 out of 4 seasons in the Premier League we'll have finished 7th, and That's not doing a Stoke. That is the scale up from that. Leicester aren't able to do that, and Leicester is supposed to do this great project, who are a billionaire's plaything, if we're being honest. They do it very well run, billionaire's plaything, but it's really difficult because we've done this big rise, but it feels, which isn't the greatest way to sort of describe it, it feels like we're so near to it. We need this one little thing more. We just need this one centre midfielder. We just need this one striker. We just need this, one thing, and that'll make us brilliant. That'll make that next step up. Whereas, if you, it pains me to say it, I reckon if you take a step back and say, yeah, if you did have this one thing, would you actually, if we got Renato Sanchez, if we'd have got Sven Botman or whatever, would we be higher than 7th or 8th? Would we really be 4th? Probably not. And it pains me to say it because I think everyone needs to, we need about 4 of those players to really be able to consistently do it over a 38-game season. And you can't buy 4 of those types of players in one go.
Yeah.
And you know what? The club, I think they're worried about the financial implications around some stuff, which Stu will tell you is complete malarkey in terms of them worrying about it. But Wolves, to a degree, are in a position despite of the owners, not because of them. The one thing the club have done really well since they took over, apart from the madness of what was Wenger, is they've been very astute at hiring coaches who are good at improving players, because it's afforded them not to spend extra money. They didn't need to. They got for all of Nuno's faults, he improved players. Bruno Lage improves players, and you know what? It's meant that we've not had to upgrade Max Kilman or Roman Sace.
Mm-hmm.
And I love both of those players. That isn't me slandering them. But if you bring in a different manager, he might go, I reckon Roman Sace has got a ceiling, and I think he's hit it. We need to spend 20 million to replace him. Whereas, we've had 2 managers come and go, I can get a tune out of him, and have done.
Yeah. And I think it's not even luck either, because Lopetegui is one of those managers as well. Then obviously he took the Spain job because why wouldn't you? But he's a coach first who improves players. So that's always been in the DNA since they took over.
And to link it back round, they are specialists in what they do, improving players and coaching players, not acquiring players. Which is why you need a transfer committee, just to bring it all back full circle.
Hey everyone, Alex here. If you're enjoying what you're hearing on Whole Lotta Wolves, and you haven't done so already, please leave a review on iTunes or whatever podcast platform you use to listen to the show. It helps grow the audience and the show's visibility, which we greatly appreciate, and in turn enables us to do even more to deliver a better product to you each week. So thanks for listening, rating, and reviewing. Now back to the show.
Well, guys, it's Midlands Derby this coming Saturday, and we're at home against Aston Villa. For us, it's back to a 10 a.m. Eastern, 9 a.m. Central kickoff. What time is it for you guys over there?
3.
3?
3 o'clock kickoff on a Saturday. Who'd have thought?
So, guys, we're going to lean on you two a little, given your proximity, or maybe you guys live or work alongside some Villa fans. How do you think they'll be approaching it, and who will we need to be on the lookout for? I'm married to one, so
I hate derby games. I've always hated them. It's just they're annoying because the stakes are too high, and for the vast majority of my life, we've always messed it up on derby day, pretty much always. So I think if Coutinho is bothered and if Coutinho is firing, which without Neves in the middle is going to be a problem and more than likely to happen now, I think that's where the problems are going to start, because when he looks good, he's looked very good for them. When he's not, and he's looked a bit lazy and off it, then I think we've got a chance. I mean, you look at the table, they are still below us. let's get it right. They're not this brilliant, amazing side that the Villa fans think they are. But Coutinho, for all me thinking that he was a bit washed up, and at his age, he shouldn't be at Villa, really. I'd be amazed if he's there next season. Really, if some of the performances he's put in, it looks like he was the player that he was when he left. Not to the same level, but he was getting there. I think Coutinho's a danger man. I think the rest of the team kind of flounders around. I mean, if Mings plays, then obviously that's a bonus for us. So hopefully he don't get knackered on Tuesday nights for England. But yeah, I think Coutinho for me is the one who seems more dangerous than the rest at the minute.
Yeah, I mean, he is their star player. Player I really like for Villa is Jalen Ramsey, midfield, who is very young but is annoyingly good because he seems to be able to quietly do everything. And he might not set the world on fire against Wolves, but if I was looking at it from a Villa fan's perspective in terms of like your positives from this season, yeah, Coutinho's great, but seeing him again, because I think he made his first start for Villa when we played him last year, I think when we lost 1-0. And he's pretty much been a first choice player ever since. So, again, I don't rate a lot of their team. I'll be honest. I think it is pretty mediocre. Even the signing, say, kind of replaced Grealish with, I was like, well, I don't massively rate Buendia, personally. I don't see him being, a top half Premier League player, for example. But I can see that there's something definitely special about Jalen Ramsey. Not Jalen Ramsey. Jacob Ramsey, not Jalen. Jacob. Jalen Ramsey is a cornerback for the Rams. That's where I was getting confused.
Yeah.
There we go. At least I didn't go for Aaron Ramsey. I'll take that as a positive.
Do you think there's a little extra at stake with the way Wolves won the game earlier this year with that 3-2 win?
Definitely.
Yeah. I think more if Dean Smith would have been there, it would definitely have been. But I can't really remember any kind of beef with Gerrard at all. I don't know about you, Rich, because he's never really been. It's not like Lampard, who was looking a perpetual arsehole all the time. Gerrard never really seemed to have anything with us that I can remember off the top of my head, anyway.
Like he had his moments playing for Liverpool, but none of them were against Wolves.
No,
I do get what you mean. Like, I can't think of any slight I'd have against Gerrard. I don't know how much to massively rate him as a manager, and I'm interested to sort of see, because obviously there's been a lot of PR this week about him playing for Liverpool and that testimonial. So there's been lots of shots of him at the training ground of things you love to see. It's like a photo of like a slightly overweight Steven Gerrard. Whether that's going to affect them, God knows. But yeah, I don't know if I quite rate Gerrard as a manager. Do you, Stu?
It's too early to tell. I mean, he did really well for Rangers, obviously, up there, but the way they fell away since he left kind of says it all to me. So I think with him being there now instead of Dean Smith, I don't think that what happened earlier in the season is going to have as much of a toll on their minds, really. It's pretty much a different. The way they play is different as well. They're not as awful as they were before. They're still not great, but they're not as awful as they were when we played them and when they fell apart. So I think it'll probably be more on the fans' minds than anything else. Let's just hope that it stays that way, because if anyone loves rubbing it in your face and talking about how great they are, it's Villa fans.
Yeah.
Well, I'm more concerned about looking at the way that we're going to bounce back from a similar situation against Leeds. So that's it for me. It's a game that how are we going to respond to chucking away a 2-goal lead and being absolutely dog shit for defensively for the bulk of that second half. And it's one of those games where we've got this run in. We know the big teams that we're going to come up against. We know that we're probably not going to get maximum points from potentially 3 of those. So that's 9 we could be losing straight away. So to me, I think there's a fair bit riding on this game on Saturday, in that if we win, it's going to really set us. It's going to reset us and put us back on course. If we lose, I'd probably be inclined to say that's us done for the season then.
Yeah.
I am slightly anxious more than you intrigued about how we're going to line up, especially without Jimenez. Now, I'm worried in general about how we're going to score goals, but we've barely scored all season. So the fact that Jimenez won't be playing always doesn't worry me too much, apart from he drags other people in. It's just whether he goes for Fabio Silva and has, someone up next to him to help out, or he goes for a couple of, I guess, almost attacking players. Like if he starts Wang, Podence, and Trincao, I'm a bit anxious.
No.
That's not gonna do it. Stuart, you know it's gonna happen.
I know it's going to happen. That's what, and he'll put Podence through the middle again, like he did before.
Yeah.
And I think it's crying out for Fabio. It has to be. And if we're playing a 3, then I'd play Podence. If we're playing a 2, then I wouldn't put him anywhere near that starting lineup, because the way he's nonsense throwing himself to the ground has increased in the last few weeks.
Yeah, it's gotten really bad.
I mean, it's not just him either. I mean, I watched the Mexico-US game the other night, it finished at 4:00 here on a Friday morning, which I had to work the next day and all. That was a great 0-0 to watch in the middle of the night. And Raul's performance was absolutely atrocious. But what is he doing?
That's CONCACAF for you.
Yeah, I mean, he was doing it again. I mean, he did get proper smacked that one in the one challenge, to be fair. But how much he was on the floor, it's crept into his game. It's crept into Podence. No one else yet seems to have took it on board, thankfully. I think if Trincao did it, he'd be hung, drawn, and quartered by everyone. He's not allowed to do anything wrong now for the rest of the season if he wants to get people on board. But yeah, we can't be playing a front 3 like that. We just can't. Fabio has to be the focal point. If it's in a 2 up front, maybe Huang. I don't really know. That's the problem, because they're all as bad as each other.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. I'd happily see Fabio and Podence start as a front 2 with a midfield 3 of Matinho, Cundland, Dendonka. But that you've got no options. You have the only way Wolves can change the game is by dragging off one of those centre midfielders. And so it's a slightly sorry state of affairs when you're like, well, I don't quite know how it's all going to happen, but you never know, do you? And I think, it might do a bit of disservice on Huang as well, who's got a goal. I mean, or Trincao, who did great when he came on and did great against Villa. But Wolves can sometimes surprise us, especially after an international break, in terms of what they want to try and achieve, if you know what I mean, like how they go about a game. Because sometimes we've been straight out of traps recently, like against Leicester and Spurs, but other times we just don't wake up. I can't get why we fluctuate in terms of game plans like that. So I think it's going to be interesting in terms of how they approach the game, whether they just try and completely kill it for the first instance. I think if we do, we're going to get battered. We'll probably only lose 1 or 2-0, but I think just mentally, it'll be a bit like it was against Palace. I think if we actually go for it, because we know that they're not a great side, then we've got more than a solid chance of beating these quite comfortably, I think.
And you'll have people on the beers from 8 in the morning as well, which always helps.
Yeah. I mean, it shouldn't be a Saturday 3:00 game, but that's
it's gonna. It's gonna. I mean, there might be 2 drones this week rather than just the one that we had against Leeds.
So let's hear predictions then. I'll start with you, Stu.
Yeah, 2-0. 2-0 win.
Wow.
Don't know why, but 2-0 win.
Okay. Richard, how about you?
2-1.
2-1. Wolves?
Yeah. Never predictable. My little, I was going to say secret that isn't very secret, is that I never predict Wolves to lose. If I think they're going to lose, I predict them to draw.
Interesting. Alex, hop in here. What's your prediction?
I'm going to stick with 1-1. I know it's out of necessity, but the 3 in the midfield is kind of uninspiring. I feel like they fall behind and then get one back when they eventually go 3 up top. So I'm kind of like Richard, too. When I don't feel very good, I'll just say a 1-1 draw. I'm not going to have them getting hammered, but yeah, I'll go 1-1 again.
Okay. Paul?
I'm in the draw club as well. I've got to go 1-1. I'm just not feeling it at the moment. Maybe that changes. We're a little ways away from it, and the positivity comes back toward the end of the week. But I think it's going to be a struggle.
I just don't know. No Neves, no Raul.
It's going to go either like one or two ways.
Yeah.
It's going to be polar opposites, I think. So
Yeah.
It's not going to be boring.
I'm going to say 0-0, Paul.
I
I just don't see us scoring. I really don't. It's going to have to be a fluke goal on either side, I think. I think it's, yeah. That's what I got. All right, Paul, no stupid questions. We're going to put a new spin on this week and keep them between ourselves. So, Richard and Stu, what have you got for us? And then we'll ask some for you.
Okay, so I was trying to think of a couple of Fancast Twitter calling questions we've had come up recently that I've enjoyed. One, I'm going to, just for myself, so this came off the back of realising that washing machines had a filter on them, which I didn't know. So I just didn't realise they were a thing, and I've had this washing machine for a couple of years now, and then emptied the filter to frankly devastating effects. And then it started working again. Anyway, so my stupid question is, what thing would you have liked to learn earlier than you actually did?
Oh, geez.
And now, it can be sort of kind of technology related, like a little thing, rather than like a great deep moral sense. Like, I'd have liked to have learned taxes when I was 15. Like, we'll keep it light-hearted sort of thing.
Paul?
That's got the steam coming out the ears in what I'm thinking now.
My other question then, and this will be an easier one, is what's your favourite gadget?
Oh, favorite gadget?
That's a good. Yeah.
I mean, I think we have to say our cell phone, right?
Yeah.
Because, growing up in the 80s and 90s, boy, when we got that was awesome.
Yeah. We debated, I guess, what you class as a gadget at this point. So I think, Stu, you said your PS5. I went for my wireless headphone headband.
That's ridiculous.
It's great.
I'm gonna put an American spin on mine. Not that it's a gadget, but just to let you know that our bottles of beer come in a screw top, so you don't need a bottle opener anymore.
Yeah,
so.
I'll take that. That can come under gadget. I'll happily accept that.
But then, Paul, you miss out on having bottle openers that look like this.
Yeah, you can't really put that in your pocket, can you?
I think
park with it.
my keys are over the other end of the house, but I still have a gecko-shaped bottle opener keyring, which I got like my first week at university at a freshers fair, and it is like it's so nearly worn down. I can barely open a beer with it now, but it's like literally as a last cling to my early prime days. Yeah. Sorry, I'm gonna get emotional about old now. That's how Stu feels.
Yeah, I mean mine. I was going to say mine obviously doesn't count for Paul, but going on this, have Alex or Josh ever played or thought about playing Subutio?
I have no idea what that even is.
Never heard of it. No.
Even Stu, even I'm old enough to know that. Don't worry.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It was. I mean, how can you even? It's a tabletop.
Like Dungeons and Dragons, but soccer teams.
Yeah.
Kind of.
Think stop motion FIFA. But
wow.
You essentially you had a tablecloth that had a football pitch laid out on it. You had 11 men and a very small ball, and you had to flick the men to hit the ball until you scored. I think you had like 3 flicks in a row, right? I'm thinking.
3 flicks, and there was offside, and there was ways of doing it as well. So if you got you can get pro tournaments as well, where you could flick it in a certain angle and get players to go bend round other players, and it's way more technical than you think it is. So just look at YouTube videos of Subutio.
I will check that out.
you'll look at it and think it is mad that people played this, but again, it was literally FIFA before there was.
Yeah, it's 70s,
video
80s.
games. Yeah.
It sounds like here. I don't know, Josh. Do you ever play electric football? There's like
long time ago. Yeah,
you put 11 little figures, 11 on 11 for American football on a vibrating board, and you plug it in, and it just vibrates so that the players like eventually move, and you have to hope that you place them to where the vibrations will move them towards the goal line. I mean, you're just sitting there watching this, so it's a little bit less involved than that's Budo, if that's what it's called. But
if you ever played like any, so Warhammer in, I'm trying to think, it is like the Dungeons and Dragons is like a really good shout, or like playing with like, like little toy figurines in like little battles and stuff like that. If you ever had like paint like little army battalions or whatever, and like reenacting it and say like role play stuff, that is the easiest way of describing a football version.
So I know for your first question now, I know my answer.
Okay.
So when I was in college, one of my fraternity brothers, this was back in 2002, one of my fraternity brothers kept talking about Bitcoin and how everybody needed to like put money into Bitcoin. And we were like, what the hell are you talking about? This crypto crap? I don't know. And he's like, I'm telling you guys. And he invested like thousands and thousands of dollars in Bitcoin. And we're like, what? Okay, waste of money. Good job, Ben. He is now retired at 38 years old. And Lord only knows how much money he made, even if he sold like early on. So I wish I had listened to him about Bitcoin way back in 2002.
Do you have any questions that are able to be on a recorded production? Not the Fancast initiation questions.
No. I know what I can say, and it's a backwards plug to my other podcast that Richard's appeared on before, Cage Fighting. What's your favourite Nicolas Cage movie?
Oh man. It's the brand new one. And I've liked Nicolas Cage, but the brand new one, Willy's Wonderland.
Oh, yes.
It's brilliant because he doesn't say a word the entire movie. And it fits perfectly with that character and with him. Like, I don't know if anybody else could have pulled it off. So he's had a bunch of good ones, but I thought that one was just pure brilliance by him.
With Willy's Wonderland, we actually had the composer of the soundtrack on the podcast.
Wow.
We just DM'd him on Twitter and asked him if he wanted to come on, and he said, okay.
Have you seen that yet, Paul?
I've not, no. I'm going to look
It's
it
basically like a horror Chuck E. Cheese that is it's possessed by like this cult. And Nicolas Cage, who doesn't say a word, he's stuck in this town because he has a flat tire and he doesn't have any cash. So they're like, oh, well, you can clean this place up and that'll be the reward. And they're sending him in there to get sacrificed, essentially. And he ends up like just becoming a badass in there, but never says a word the entire movie. It's brilliant.
His last one, he almost got Oscar nominated for, which was Pig.
Pig, yeah.
Where he's a truffle pig farmer. But yeah, he's how about you, Paul? Nicolas Cage.
I've not got the breadth of knowledge, so I'm just going old school with Face Off, which is still it's a classic, so.
Excellent.
I just saw the previews for that new Unbearable Weight movie where Nicolas Cage is playing himself, and I can't wait for that one.
I've literally booked tickets for that 2 hours ago.
I just saw the preview for it yesterday, and I was like, "What is this?" And it looks awesome.
Yeah, he's having some. I mean, it's a happy coincidence because for us, me and a couple of the other Fancast guys, Matt and Andy, we started this kind of side project in lockdown because we literally had nothing else to do, talking about reviewing Nicolas Cage films, and then every other week talking about just film questions. Like, imagine a whole episode of No Stupid Questions, but about film. That's what every other week is. And so we started that when he was doing terrible films all the time. And then things like Colour Out of Space came out and things like Willy's Wonderland. And we thought, well, oh, it's a renaissance. We're in the right place at the right time. And now all three of us are going to see a Nicolas Cage film at the cinema through choice.
do you guys? That's awesome. Do you guys, what do you think of the National Treasure movies? Since they're kind of beloved out here, since they're US based.
They were like one of the first ones she did for cage fighting.
Yeah, they were
potentially the first one.
Yeah, it was. It was the first episode. I'd only seen it once. I'd never seen the second one. I loved them. I thought they were great.
They're really good. They are very fun films, is how I describe them.
Yeah, the Uncharted film is very similar in kind of tone to them, and that's kind of why I like that. But yeah, I'll come around to that. I mean, there's people under a certain age like the National Treasure films here. And it's like, I'm completely missed out on this altogether. And I watched it when I was a student, quite drunk. Yeah, OGs like The Rock and Face Off and Con Air. That was my era to start with.
He's got some sneaky good ones. Snake Eyes, I remember really enjoying that. Wind Talkers. Let me see. World Trade Center was good. Wicker Man, that's where that famous meme is.
Yeah. So there's a few dotted in there. I mean, there's little cult ones, I guess, like Gone in 60 Seconds as well, which is not that. I think that's like the first Nicolas Cage movie I remember watching him in.
Now, I did watch Mandy, and I hated Mandy. That was like...
Yes!
That was like essentially you'd have to be like on major drugs to enjoy that movie.
Yeah, we were recommended that for the first probably 6 months. People saying, do Mandy. We went, no, we'll do Mandy when we want to do Mandy. And then we've done Colour Out of Space, which we all loved.
Uh-huh.
And so we got around to it, okay, well, let's do Mandy. None of us had seen it. And I think it was that kind of, it had been built up to such a high degree that people had loved it. And when I put it on, I thought, what is this bollocks? It doesn't even make any sense for it to be funny. It's just too odd for its own good.
Yeah, it was really odd. USS Indianapolis was also a great movie. Made famous by Quint's monologue in Jaws. Paul, I'm a movie buff, as you can tell. I think Paul's got some questions for you now.
Yeah, we've touched upon it a little bit, and I explain it in the context that we've probably never had over here in the States a good insight into the club, the fan base, everything that goes on with it, the forums, podcasts, you name it. It's a ton of information that we've got access to. But do you think it comes across overly negative when we look to those reactions on Twitter or Molyneux Mix? What's the pulse like in the pub? Or what does the guy talking behind you on the road behind you at the match say? The guy that you've been stood next to for years but never know his name. Is it as bad as how it sometimes comes across online, or are we okay? And an extension of that, do you think we're different to anyone else?
We're definitely not different to anyone else. I think that my takeaway from speaking to Fat, like it's different at other clubs. Like I mean, like I think Arsenal. Yeah, if you exclude the top six out of it, who are like normal football clubs, I think provincial town football clubs, they have exactly the same fans. Is how I look at it. You have the same fractions, and it doesn't matter. You'll still have like 50% of on board, 50% want change. And for however much I'd love to say, Wolves are different. Wolves Twitter's balmy. It's mad. It'll be exactly the same for like Coventry Twitter, or I don't know, like Crystal Palace Twitter, let's say. That'd be my take on it.
I think because of the weird size of club that we are, it seems like there's more of us, which there is, but in the kind of, as a percentage of fans, I don't think it's any worse than anywhere else. I think what you do see though is that, like, sometimes you have to take a step back and think Twitter's not real.
Yeah.
And like the vast majority of people are not on Twitter all the time, all day long, if at all. So when you're in the pub, I mean, there's people who've listened to the Fancast who are not on Twitter. I mean, my own brother, He's on Twitter. I don't know what his profile name is. He's a stalker. But he just reads things. He doesn't post or rants about COVID and stuff like I have in the past. He keeps himself to himself. He goes to the match, very relatively quiet, very opposite of me. And he goes home, and then that's it. That's how his Wolves thing is. He just watches and keeps it in his head. Yeah. And I think that is, for the vast majority of people, that is what they are. And when they get in the pub with their mates, unless we're on a really bad run, I mean, like if last year had not happened how it did, I don't think Nuno would have gone past Christmas because fans would have been meeting up with each other. It would have trickled down from the stands. You would have heard it. That wasn't the case. I mean, it looked on Twitter that time. It was the other way around. Everyone's on Twitter seems to be supportive, and there was a very few of us. I mean, like me and Tightwad Billy, you can follow him, he's funny, who were the outliers saying the bloke's lost the plot. And I know you, Josh, you were so pro Nuno as well on here, and I'd think maybe it was because we're so downbeaten and old at this kind of game, 28 years of watching Wolves, that we're so used to seeing how the patterns of how things go wrong over time. It was just blatantly obvious for me that was going to happen. I even had arguments with my own family. My mum, they speak to me for 3 weeks. And I said that he's lost the plot. This is not a one-off. And that was Sheffield United away when we lost in the last minute.
Yeah.
That's when I started having doubts. But that was the opposite on Twitter compared to real life. And it's a bit like this kind of, it's a bit political, the whole J.K. Rowling thing with the new Harry Potter game. If you look on Twitter, it's let's all burn everyone who's working on that thing but at the stake. You look at the pre-orders, it's going to be one of the biggest games of the year.
Right.
So I think we just have to take a step back out of our little bubble, that we're not the man in the street, so to speak. The man in the street is actually loving being a Wolves fan at the minute and can't believe it, like we said earlier.
I think to Stu's point, the echo chamber is a really big one, and you can kind of get drawn into it if you're not careful, or you disregard certain fans because they've got different opinions to you. But it always loops back to kind of, I guess what we were saying at the start of the show about like being a fan. It doesn't matter where you are. Like, there's Molineux will have 28,000 Wolves fans in it when you take out the away fans. Mm-hmm. But there's far more than 28,000 Wolves fans digesting that game. And, even beyond that, and we all kind of go about it differently. So Stu will be very vocal for a day about a game, and then he'll move on. And we all kind of, I guess, digest it and absorb it slightly differently. I think Twitter's just a vacuous space sometimes, isn't it? Where, like you said, everyone's got the opportunity to post their opinions on there, and it can be the biggest difficulty with Twitter for me is there's a character limit. So, like, you can put your opinion to people you don't know, don't necessarily like, and you don't have very many characters to explain what you actually think. Whereas if you're at the pub, you can talk to them in person, you can have literally a verbal dialogue and not be restricted to 160 characters. And it makes such a difference to have it. And I think that's why I like doing a podcast, because me and Stu might have a difference of opinion on, like, I don't know, Wolves defending. If it was just through Twitter, it would come across just like this back and forth, like, no, you're wrong, no, you're wrong. Whereas you get to talk about it, you can't think, oh, well, we're all Wolves, we're more Wolves. And you carry on. It's I find Twitter a funny old place a lot of the time.
Somewhat of a similar topic is that, again, when it comes to content, we've never had it as good, but we miss that live connection, I'd say, and the opportunity to see these players in the flesh. So, who do you both see that's going to potentially be the next breakthrough when it comes to the under-23s or the academy, either from the buzz that they get in football circles or from having the opportunity to get to a reserve game and see them live?
I mean, Luke, can we class Luke Kundle? Because I think he's played one.
Or Toddy Gomez, yeah.
Yeah. Again, Toddy Gomez I think would be a really good shout. I mean, the thing with like Luke Kundle, if you saw him in the under-23s, was it 2 days ago on Friday? And he's just like leaps and bounds beyond that level. Like, whether he's quite Premier League ready, I don't know, but it is very clear that half a year around the first team squad and getting a couple of minutes here and there, he's beyond that level at the moment, I think.
I mean,
a really easy one. Sorry, Stu.
I say for me, it's Dexter Lembisika, right wing back. He looks. I think he's getting a bit of notice now. I think Jude put something on his Twitter about him the other day when he got an assist. But he looks like a mixture of Semedo and Doherty, if you can imagine such a beast. He's completely not Keanu Hoover, which is obviously a good point. But he's also young enough, and there's enough there. Even just seeing him, how very raw he is at the minute, give him a year or 18 months, I can see him breaking through. So, Dexter Lembisika, there you go.
I was going to say, one of a shout out, just because I had to find his name, is Nathan Fraser, who's 17. So we are like a good 3 or 4 few years off. But like, I think he's just signed his first pro deal. He's been scoring goals in the under-18s. He's been scoring. I think he's recently been moved up to under-23s as well at a really young age. So I think we've got a lot of hope in him as well.
How about anybody at Grasshoppers that you're really excited about?
Well,
yeah, Bonatini. Is Bonatini still there? Getting back. Top shagger. That's what his main achievement was over here. We actually had in the championship season. His mum and dad came on the supporters couch with us, and it's an independent, not affiliated with the club whatsoever. So it's go somewhere 5 mile outside where you're going to play, have 2 or 3 hours drinking time, then go to the match. And so you got these people in the late 40s, I guess, early 50s, on this couch with a bunch of us not understanding that much English, let alone our accented English, looking quite confused with the whole situation. But fair play to him, his dad necked his beer as much as we did. But they seem to enjoy themselves. Yeah, but we've never had anything like that before. That was a weird one.
I was going to say my slightly more serious one is the Japanese attacking midfielder we got. I'm going to butcher the pronunciation, but Hawaii Kawabe, who I think he's still scored like a few goals since he's been out there, and I think he had a good sort of first part of the season with them, and has kind of cracked on still. So again, Japanese international. I hope he's got a decent caliber within him. Whether he can make the step up to Premier League football, never quite know. But again, he seems to have the right makeup for what we're hopefully looking for.
Well, we had the Korean kid as well. Is he
there
as well?
Yeah, that's who I'm really excited about. Korean Mbappe.
Yeah, remember when we had the that guy on who specialises in the K League? Was it the start of this season or the end of last season?
Yeah.
And he was talking on that episode about how they're brought up in a kind of technical way. It's not really based on sports and winning all the time. It's based on personal development more than anything else. So that's why you see players how technically good Son is, and Hwang as well to a certain extent. Not his first touch, of course, but everything else about him, his dribbling skills. So if the Korean Mbappe is as highly rated as people seem to think he is, then the Grasshoppers then bring him back. Ideal.
I had a no stupid question, but I feel like we've hit on it quite a bit. I was going to ask about how you feel when you see people like myself coming over to Wolves, like with American accents, who are there traveling overseas just to go to a game. But we hit on that quite a bit, so maybe I'll pivot and I'll ask, is there anything here that maybe is a little obscure? You mentioned your Indianapolis Colts, that you would come over like just to go to that. That would, if you told your friends you were going to come here for that, they'd be like, "Are you crazy?" Like when I told people I was going to England for a soccer match at Wolverhampton, they were like, "What?"
I was going to say, in terms of your first one, you know, I love it. There are people who struggle to travel, like literally in a WV postcode to get to Wolves. It's enough of a mission for me. I left 20 miles away, something like that, 15 miles. Like, and so anyone who's like, you say, women go, "Oh, you're not a Wolves fan because you didn't go to this game or you don't have a season ticket." It's like, people are genuinely like booking holidays to go to Wolverhampton. And they're getting up at the break of dawn to watch this team. You're telling me they're not real fans? So in terms of going over, seeing a Colts game would be cool. I'd almost be more interested in seeing like a big college game or even a high school game in terms of American football, because I mean college is just this, you see the crowds in some of the bigger colleges. You've mentioned like Alabama, you've got Ohio as well, and like Michigan. I think when that stadium's full, it's like the fourth biggest city in the state or something stupid.
Yeah, it's like 108,000, I think.
Yeah, it's like that's mental. I wouldn't necessarily, if I was going over to America, I was like on some sort of sports odyssey. I'd be interested in watching like an American football at high school level, just because when you hear like, they get like 10,000 going to a game, it's like they're kids, and like I almost can't compute the emotional impact. I'm talking to two guys in Texas, and I've watched Friday Night Lights, so I know what it's like. And I go like, that's crazy. But there's such this big following that it's like, in my head, it's like a precursor, isn't it? It's a precursor to a precursor, in theory. So it's like under 18 level. Like about 20 people watch for Wolves under 18. And it's like, you say like the whole town, the whole community comes out and watches them. I mean, I wouldn't know where to start in terms of going to a high school game, but yeah, that concept amazes me in terms of like the focus on, essentially like junior stuff. So yeah, if I was going over to America from a sports perspective, that would be quite cool.
I think for me, it'd be, obviously apart from going to MetLife and be disappointed, I think I've always had this kind of...
hang on, Stu, do you want to meet that Seattle Sounders fan?
We can't put Dave on screen twice in a week, can we?
No.
I've had a lot of MetLife experiences. I don't know yours, but all have been disappointing, by the way, as somebody who lives like a 30-minute drive from MetLife.
Yeah, other than that, I've always had this thing, I don't know why, that I think it's maybe because after I watched Ghost Rider for the first time, like them crazy like MX like extreme sports places like with monster trucks and stuff, because we don't have anything like that here at all. I mean, you get monster trucks in the park. I mean, we had one in West Park about 5 years ago on its own, going over like a little hill, and there's some swans watching it. And it's like it's not the same. So something just mental like has out there and as stereotypically American as you could get, something like that, and just to spend a week, 2 weeks, just being there, like being somewhere like, let's say like in Trevor's trailer park in GTA 5, that kind of thing, but so somewhere where you wouldn't expect to go, like just pick like you said, just a random town in England or Wolverhampton. No one knows where that is. The similar kind of thing, just look on the map, just pick somewhere and just go there and be there for a week and just experience what it was like. Just because why not? It'll be different, and I'll probably never come back. I mean, let's be honest. But
I think like going to like somewhere in America that isn't necessarily like a top touristy destination as well, and like that very cool. Something the majority of people I know go to America. They go East Coast, they go New York, they go Boston, or they go Florida, or they go California.
Yeah, like you can say North Carolina for 2 weeks just for a laugh.
Yeah, you might get some who go like Atlanta maybe as well, but you then miss out all this like kind of additional stuff like go and let's say like Kentucky Derby or something mental, which is like Ascot.
You would be quite amazed by the Kentucky Derby.
Yeah. So like similar in Wolverhampton, like it's the old thing about a cafe that serves the world's best coffee, and it's like
Lucky now.
But that's it, isn't it? We're all proud of where we're from, and like everyone's like, oh well, you need to go like fish and chip shop. It'll be here, wouldn't it? You need to come to this fish and chip shop, yeah. Just because you buy anything at Charlie's, isn't it? But anyway, but it's like you need to go here because it is the best. But every town thinks it, and with America being like we have that being really condensed. But there'll be that for like states and different areas in America, I can imagine. So like even like I guess like I don't know how Houston card gets broken up, but you have this place does they say we do the best pie in Texas or whatever, and like that's what I get. I get complete Stu. Yeah, I'd want to be there for 2 weeks and just be in this like little town that is really like nothing in the grand scheme of things, but it has this whole world that rotates around it. Like that fascinates me.
Maybe at Christmas as well. So like you're in your own Hallmark film. It'll be amazing.
Well, Hallmark film bromance with an
side. I tell you, Stu, mine and your road trip through America.
That would make a great podcast, by the way.
It would.
Yeah, I mean, just imagine the amount of wool that you'd have to take, though.
Oh no, I'm wearing a jumper at the moment. Nothing more typifies Stu. But I'm pretty much always wearing a jumper, and Stu is somewhat wearing. I was going to say something ridiculous. You're fortunately not. I'm hoping at the moment you're just wearing an England top.
Yeah.
You're not wearing the sleeves.
No, it's summer now, ain't it? So
the last time I saw Stu was about a month ago. So. Wasn't exactly summer, and we go to the pub after the game, and takes off his jacket, and he's wearing his Wolves top, and it looks like he's wearing like Under Armour underneath, like the thermal stuff that the players wear. So we all start ribbing and going, oh, bloody hell, Stu, you look like you're about, we can try and get on as a sub or something. He went, no, it's just to keep my arms warm, and like we keep pushing out, aren't you warm? Because you're wearing a thermal, it's like, it's in a pub, it's boiling. I was like, oh no, don't worry, I can just take them off. And he opens up, it's wearing short sleeves, and just peels them down. What the hell is this? It was like a complete mimo. And what the hell are these? Just sleeves, aren't they? Well, what? He said, I wouldn't want to wear full on, because then my tummy would get warm. Were your exact words? You didn't say chest, you said tummy.
Yes, I did.
Anyway, and basically, I don't know if this is a thing in America. I now need to find this out. But it's like you bought them because they're basketball sleeves, which I understand as a concept. I don't watch enough NBA, but I know basketball sleeves are a thing. Now, do people wear them casually?
No.
The only time you'll see them, it'll be in a more professional setting, maybe at retail to cover tattoos.
Right.
So there is some practical application.
Okay.
But yeah, other than that, no. You won't see that at the bar.
Okay, good to know. Good to
That'd
know.
be proper full-kit wanker.
Yes. Yeah. Yes.
Oh. That's an option. I have now got the gold, the match jackets they wear.
Yeah.
As they walk out, I've got that now. Oh, it's actually here. I bought it because it was in the sale. So I've now got the gold jacket as well as gold jeans, which I wear at Christmas time twice. What so they were kind of bright yellowy orangey trainers as well. Yeah. They Adidas ones. So I could go full old gold.
Between me and you though, we got asses kicked if me and you went to America though, I think. Not for anything, just we'd look at so out of place for two completely separate reasons. It would make great content. Not going to get in the way of that. Nothing will ever get in the way of good content. But I think we'd be definite fishes out of water.
Yeah.
Now, Stu, do you also go out in public wearing a full kit?
I've never I think the last time I bought the shorts and socks, I was probably I was 16. So
Okay.
no, the only reason being that they don't have pockets. If they had pockets, then I would. But there's the only other option is going FKW with a man bag, and even I can't justify that. Unless it was for charity. We could do this, Rich. If someone wants to do something for charity, and I'll go full kit wanker for a whole day in the pub with boots on as well and sleeves, and I'll get a man bag and I'll do it.
The reason I ask is because it's a big joke on Twitter with Nate, who from the Soccer Neophytes podcast, who you guys had on your podcast last week. The big joke was he wore the Mexico-looking full kit. And last year, and they went on a run for several games, and so the joke was, you got to keep wearing it. And one was like a weekday, and he's like, I don't know, I have to have these online meetings, I don't know how I'm going to do it. And it was like, look, if you're a real fan, you'll do it. So
yeah.
he did.
Get it underneath.
Yeah.
Huh? Yeah.
Get it on underneath, didn't he?
No, I think he just had it on and just said, forget it. And yeah, then they went on a losing streak, so he was like, okay, I gotta. But that was why I asked. We were always joking about that online. So you'll even see us on Twitter talking about, you got to wear the full kit, Nate.
Yeah, I think out of everyone, I think I'm probably. I don't think many others do they? I mean, no, I know Matt does sometimes. It's more a case of like casual stuff, whereas I think it's a big thing there, and it's a big. It seems like the thing that everyone does, wearing like football shirts and wearing colours, but it's actually not at all. I think that might be when you actually finally get over it. That might be a big thing that shocks you a bit, because people, this kind of team's call is probably more akin to what you'd actually see in a pub rather than people in colours.
Yeah, I think. I think there's a whole thing about wearing colours and not wearing colours. I think when playing away, and you go and follow your team away, you tend to wear colours. For, I guess, slightly dated reasons now around football violence. And that actually, if you're wearing a football shirt, you are there for the football, and you're identifying yourself as someone who's there for the football a lot of the time. But I think if you go in, I think now that going to the game, it's not 90 minutes. It is as Stu says, like he said, people start drinking at 8 a.m. in the morning for the Villa game. It's a bit extreme, but like for a Saturday 3 o'clock kickoff, you might leave the house at 12. Let's say you leave at 12, get some food, have some beers, go to the game, go out afterwards, have a couple of drinks, get some food. It's a full day thing. So would you really want to just be going out wearing essentially an athletic stock that you'd wear to the gym in any other walk of life? That's what you're wearing, in it. But
for me, yes.
You would. I think some people can be a bit snooty about wearing a football top sometimes. Do you think that's Stu?
Yeah, I mean, it's each their own. I mean, it depends. I think a lot of it comes to, like we were talking earlier, I mean, how we're kind of bred into this world, and it depends on what your dad was like, or your mum in my case. And obviously they all wore colours and they wore shirts to games. My uncle doesn't. He, not till recently, he never did away, either for the opposite reason, that he didn't want to be identified at away games. I mean, we don't see anyone anyway. I've never been, like we said on the Fancast Football Factory special last week, available now. We never got into them kind of areas, so we never saw any trouble anyway, and never have. So for us, I mean, if I'm going to a match, I'm going to a match. I'll do other things around that, and I'll be in pubs and whatever. If I'm going out on a night time and I know I'm going to stay out in the rock club in the Gifford or whatever, then I might. I mean, I have done in the past. Took a spare shirt and got changed, and then got uptown and whatever. But on the vast, about 99.9% of the time, I'll wear a Wolves shirt to a match. It's just because of who I am. Whereas Rich, he was born wearing half a sheep, and he lives in wool, so that's what you'd expect him to wear.
I would wear a Wolves top to a match. I used to do the very classic, which I think Matt does, where I potentially wear a hoodie and put the Wolves top over the hoodie.
Yeah.
That's a classic move, I think.
Well, guys, we've had a lot of fun today. Can you give our listeners one final reminder where they can get a hold of Wolves Fancast content?
Yeah, so we are at Wolves Fancast on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram for any of your Wolves lols and trolls, really. We will. I think our next podcast will be a Villa preview. Most likely be about Thursday, top of my head. And if you fancy something different whilst we're on an international break, our last pod was a film review, film cast for The Football Factory, which was a film about football hooliganism, and it is pretty crap, but it will be a good laugh to watch. So I say it's quite hard to find it in America, but if you ask Stu, he might know the guy.
Yeah, there's always a way.
And that brings this week's show to an end. So thanks to Alex producing, Ron Firth in Canada, who helps with our social media content. We'll be back right at the start of next week to review that Villa game because it's a quick turnaround before a trip to Newcastle on the Friday. So until then, I'm going to ask Rich and Stu to join me as we bid farewell with proper Black Country accents with our own version of Up the Wolves.
Up the mighty Wolves. Get it right. It's your podcast. Do it properly.
Up the mighty Wolves.
Up the mighty Wolves.
Come on, me babbies.
Come on, me babbies.